Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Real and the Rare. My name is Scott Morgan, around the Motor City Madmouth, along with my co-host Xavier McKnight. How you doing, Xavier?
Doing good, Scott. We're glad to be back for another edition of the Real and the Rare, and we hope everybody's ready for what we're dishing out in the kitchen on this evening.
You got it. All right, we'll lead it off. It's obviously a subject that many of us like to try to go ahead and avoid doing, but I won't give it away. You're going to do it.
Well, it almost seems inevitable, but almost every single day, whether it's I get on the roadway, you get on the roadway, anybody gets on the roadway, there's always a car crash somewhere every single day. But what doesn't get discussed enough is what are the causes of these car crashes? Sometimes accidents are simply just accidents. People collide into each other, cars collide into each other. Some things are just inevitable, and I understand that. But in some of these cases, you have people who are not paying attention while they're driving. You have people who are on their cell phones or on any other technology devices while they're driving. And people who are not even driving properly. People who may be driving with, I'm somebody who does this. So I shouldn't even say this. But the proper way for us to drive is to drive with two hands on the steering wheel. We don't always do that. Sometimes we drive with one hand. And that's okay, but you need to make sure that you're not occupied doing something else while you're doing that. And, as of recently, Scott, in the Sarasota and Manatee area here on the Sun Coast in the southwest of Florida, there have just been a number of car crashes and collisions that have happened that have shut down the interstate. And I'll begin with last Wednesday, where there were two crashes involving vehicles, heavy-duty trucks, not an 18-wheeler, even though there was an accident last week in this area that did involve an 18-wheeler, but I'll get to that a little later. These heavy-duty trucks, these heavy-duty F-150s, F-250s, Silverados, Toyota Tundras, those type of level trucks. And I'm not even sure how they did this. They crashed into a portion of a bridge on the interstate. Now, the good news that comes out of that, no one was killed. I believe there was one accident where there were some critical injuries, but so far, no one has passed away from any injuries. But it shut down the interstate for hours when you have an accident like that of that magnitude. And I know that these things happen everywhere, so I'm speaking for everywhere in this case when I say, what do we have to do as people to seriously get it through our heads that these cars are not toys. And when you go out there on the roadways and the interstates, you're putting your own life and everybody else's life in danger the minute you crank up that car and you put it in drive and you go, no matter where you are. It's almost like these high collision, high contact sports. It could be over in any second. Scott, the floor is yours.
That's true. I mean, it takes all kinds. I don't care what part of the country that you're in, Xavier, a Sunbelt area, whether you're from the north where there's bad weather, potholes, you name it. I think the key to driving is concentration. Sure, and it's not only you have to watch it yourself, but you have to pay attention to what other people are doing. Accidents do happen. Is it whether it's because drunk driving? Who knows what the list goes on. I think one of the biggest things that I think happens so much nowadays are cell phones. People aren't paying attention to what they're doing. They're too distracted. Text messaging. What's there to say? When I had to go ahead and text a guy back today, what I did myself, because I was on US 441 today, is I pulled off into a subdivision just to make a right because I had an idea that was fresh in my head and pulled off where I was out of harm's way, did what I had to do. Once I did what I had to do, I went ahead and kept driving, going about my business, you know. Sometimes I understand that when thoughts are in your head, you need to get them out. I personally don't like talking on the phone when I'm driving, even though they have the hands-free ones nowadays, you know, that you don't have to bother with it. I just don't like doing it. That's just a personal, doesn't mean I won't. It's just, I don't know about your percentage, but when I'm driving, I probably talk on the phone maybe 5 to 10% of the time. Now, that doesn't mean on longer drives when I'm with my wife, you know, and we're talking to family, different story, you know what I'm saying? But for the most part, number one, I won't hold a cell phone. I leave it right next to my holster and try to stay away from it. But that's me. Okay, you have certain ways that you go about doing things, and at least the vehicles are made with the intent that you can at least go hands-free. But does that mean anything in terms of concentration, Xavier? No. I don't think. Do you?
No, I don't, and my percentage is actually going to be lower than yours. I believe that I probably may answer my phone 2% of the time, depending on who the call is, where the call's coming from. If it's a call that's coming in from my job, like it was on yesterday when I had to go to a breaking news scene, sometimes you have to answer that phone because you don't know what the update is right there. Is it, hey, this is no longer breaking news, we don't need you to go to this scene, or hey, there's more going on the scene, hey, we need you to gather this when you get there. You don't know what those type of calls are. However, when it's a personal call, no, it can wait, and I don't care how long it has to wait.
Right.
Because I'm just not that person who's going to answer my phone. Here's the most I'm going to do with my phone while I'm driving. I'm going to put in my aux cord, and I'm going to plug it up into my radio in my car, and I'm going to let the music play from my phone. And I'm going to be hands-free while I'm doing that, too. As a matter of fact, I hook up that aux cord before I even put my car in a position to drive anyway.
Right.
So I'm definitely one of those people who I'm not texting while I'm driving. I've never done that before. And if I have, it was something that was very spur of the moment, and that it won't happen again.
Right.
But to my knowledge, I don't believe I've ever intentionally had to do that before. And calling while I'm driving, no, I don't really like that either. No, not at all. Because, Scott, I'm a person who can multitask at a number of things. I can be occupied with a number of things at a certain given time, no matter what it is. Driving is one of those things I'm not going to be bold enough or be stupid enough to try that with. It's just not.
Right. I'm with you. Too dangerous, too expensive. Can kill you. You know what I mean?
And, you know, and yes, and once again, it goes back to this, and, you know, the main problem that used to be here was teenage driving and teenagers who were getting cars when they first turned 16 and 17 years old as presents from their parents or guardians for getting their license and being good kids. And, you know, they may not necessarily be mature enough to even get a car yet because they may not understand all the responsibilities that come with it. We are now officially beyond that point. This is now any age, any gender, any whatever now. Like, people are just easily distracted these days, and modern technology, of course, has played a huge role into that. But I'm not going to sit here and blame the cell phones and blame the iPod and blame the MP3 players from back in the day and the iPads and anything else. No, I'm blaming the people who do not have enough discipline to put those things down long enough so that you can do best to get yourself, and if you have other passengers in the car with you, to get them as well to your destination as safely as you possibly can within your control.
Right.
And I say that because this goes back to me saying that sometimes just the inevitable can happen.
Right.
You never know when you're going to be driving and someone's going to be coming from the wrong direction or is it going to come out of left field almost, and they might T-bone you, or they might just ram their vehicle into you. You
Right.
never know when those things are going to happen. We have car crashes and collisions and incidents that take place all the time,
Right.
especially hit-and-run accidents where no one is at fault except for the person who committed the hit-and-run accident or the incident of that sort. Because I haven't had too many instances like this, Scott, but I'm going to tell you about one in particular, and it was actually just a few months ago. I had just moved into my apartment in Bradenton, where I am now, and I was coming home from work, and I was traveling on East State Road 64, and I'm about 5 minutes away from my house, and I noticed something in the distance. I noticed a vehicle whose headlights look like they are coming directly towards the road that I'm traveling on. I'm like, no. That can't be correct, because I know for a fact I'm traveling on the correct road. What is this person doing? And this was not exactly broad daylight, but it was still enough in the evening. This was before we went into daylight savings time. This is what I'll say for that. This is before we went into daylight savings time, and this was actually before fall actually came into season. This was a little right before fall came into season. It was the middle of September, and I'm seeing this vehicle coming, and luckily there wasn't a line of traffic behind me either, because I couldn't tell if the vehicle was directly coming on the roadway towards me, but from a distance it looked like it did. So I just pull off to the side of the road, and I park in this parking lot to what I believe was a rehab center. I park in the parking lot, and then there are a few cars that are coming up behind me. And lo and behold, Scott, the car that was behind me ends up honking their horn towards this truck that is now traveling at full speed, coming down the wrong side of the road. Now, nobody was hit, but that was just very irresponsible, and that's just one of my examples that I'm saying, like, there are sometimes things happen on the roadway that are totally out of our control, and we're just in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Let me ask you a question. Okay? If you had Apple CarPlay, would you use it?
An Apple CarPlay?
You ever heard of Apple CarPlay?
No.
All right. Well, Apple CarPlay is if you have one of those, I don't know if they call them screens, where you can just, I don't know whether you actually put maps on, a GPS, or listen to YouTube or just music. I mean, I'll do that. Because sometimes the stations aren't that very good, That's another way. Well, I don't know about you, but I use driving as a form of meditation in specific instances, okay? So if I don't think the stations are adequate, whether it's satellite, local, or whatever, I'll stick my phone connected to a USB into the console and listen to my YouTube channel. That's not a big deal. People have been listening to music for a while, and that's how you're able to maintain your concentration, right?
Yes.
Would you ever use Apple CarPlay? Would you find that that's ever a distraction?
No, it usually is not a distraction for me, because I'm focused on what I have to do the entire time while I'm driving.
Right.
The two things I'll do while I'm driving is sometimes I drive in silence, sometimes I drive with some music, sometimes I'll drive listening to a podcast.
Right.
Like whatever it may be. Sometimes it's a sports podcast, sometimes it's a historical podcast, because I am a big history person.
Right.
So, depending on what that is. But, no, those things aren't usually a distraction for me. But I'm glad you brought that up, because now here comes the other question.
Sure.
Are those things a distraction for the people who are also around us in these other vehicles? And that is the question that we cannot answer. But I'm going to give it my best shot and say, yeah, I bet sometimes it is a distraction for some of those other drivers who are out there around us. Some people can seriously just need to drive with some form of silence to be able to pay attention to the roadway the entire time. But that can also go in other cases as well, where some people need some type of music or some type of noise around them while they're driving, because sometimes silence can be eerie.
Yeah, I mean, it depends.